Friday morning. Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is Jeremy coming at you once again with Redtired Podcast, and we're here for part 3 of Digging Out. And as always, here is my so pretty to look at co-host, Mr. Jacob Valdez. Good morning, Jacob.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? How are you doing this morning, Jeremy?
I'm doing peachy, man. The Democrats had a debate. This would have actually been Wednesday night. We are recording a little bit early so we can get all this done and get it out there for Friday. I mean, that shouldn't be a big surprise to anybody considering we don't have a huge team. And we got a whole lot to cover. So let's just go ahead and get this out of the way so we can get to the good stuff, okay? Sound good to you?
Yep.
Or do you want to critique something or throw something at me before? I don't like the way you introduced me. Start over.
No, it was great. Let's get the ball rolling. We got a lot to cover today,
all right,
especially on the digging up.
So, Mayor Bloomberg on the first debate stage, absolutely getting hammered from everybody. Everybody's just like, they're going after this guy because, first of all, I mean,
was it a debate or was it WWE?
Well, I mean, this was the first time. Yeah, it may have been WWE. You know, you're sleeping with my girlfriend and blah blah blah. This was the first time ever that I've ever actually seen Democrats actually go after each other and, you know, not try to put on that quote united front, that faux united front that they're always pretending that they've got going on. No, they went after each other. And so let's just jump right in. I've got a couple of clips that we're going to play. So we're going to go ahead first with clip number 1. And this is Van Jones on Elizabeth Warren, basically crushing Mayor Bloomberg.
Listen, this was a disaster for Bloomberg. Bloomberg went in as the Titanic, billion-dollar machine Titanic. Titanic meet iceberg Elizabeth Warren. She took him to task in a way that I've never seen in a debate.
What do you think about iceberg Elizabeth Warren? That's cute coming from Van Jones, but Bloomberg is the Titanic and Elizabeth Warren is the iceberg. If by iceberg you mean that she's just kind of sitting there floating, doing absolutely really nothing, I think that probably is more fitting description. But
she's like a barking chihuahua.
Beware of dog. Come on. So here's what Elizabeth Warren actually, she had to say to Bloomberg. They were talking about non-disclosure agreements and some things that I guess are very Trump-esque that Bloomberg had said about some females at one point where he was dogging on some other women or some sexual whatever. So here's clip number 2, Warren on Bloomberg and the NDAs.
We are not going to beat Donald Trump with a man who has who knows how many non-disclosure agreements and the drip, drip, drip of stories of women saying they have been harassed and discriminated against.
We have a very few non-disclosure agreements.
How many is
Let me
that?
finish.
How many is that?
None of them accuse me of doing anything other than maybe they didn't like the joke I told. And let me put, there's agreements between two parties that wanted to keep it quiet, and that's up to them.
Interesting. We're talking about, you know, Elizabeth Warren being the iceberg, but Bloomberg actually pulled a very Trump-esque move there and said, excuse me, stopped her right there dead in her tracks. And he actually went back and minimized the situation. It's almost like he took a page out of Trump's playbook.
That's what he's doing. I think that's exactly what he's doing is on the blue side, on the blue corner.
Yeah, and then in the blue corner, the world champion runner. Actually, I guess he'd be the runner-up since Trump's the president. So Trump would be the world champion,
so,
right?
Yeah, he's exactly doing what Trump was doing, and he has the money to do so.
Yeah, it was $60 billion. The guy's worth $60 billion. Billion. That's a lot of freaking dough. And you'll probably, I think you hear a little bit later in one of these that they're talking about, you know, we're talking about replacing a billionaire in office with an even bigger billionaire. They take offense to all that. This is ridiculous. It's crazy. And so here's Joe Biden, who he's trying to rely on clip number 4. This is Joe Biden trying to rely on the Obama legacy to woo voters.
Get something straight. The reason the stop and frisk changed is because Barack Obama sent moderators to see what was going on. When we sent them there to say this practice has to stop, the mayor thought it was a terrible idea. We send them there.
Barack Obama was the hero of the day that stopped everybody from going through with stop and frisk. Really? Do you remember reading any of this?
Yeah, stop and frisk is what I think was not that's gonna hurt Bloomberg in the long run when it comes to if he makes past the primaries, which I highly doubt, will bring him down.
You're probably right, but see, here's the thing: is Bloomberg used to be a Republican, Bloomberg used to be an independent, and now Bloomberg is a Democrat. So there's been this flip flop all over the place, and he did go on this little apology tour, which is clip number 5, which you're going to hear here in just a second, and he's pushing forward and he's trying to say like, but I'm reformed now. Aren't we the party of forgiveness and love and peace and blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, he speaks very Trumpish. I mean, he's just really rough around the edges. So let's go to clip number 5 where he apologizes for stop and frisk.
I've sat, I've apologized, I've asked for forgiveness, but the bottom line is that we stopped too many people, but the policy, we stopped too many people, and we've got to make sure that we do something about criminal justice in this country. There is no great answer to a lot of these problems.
Now he's right. There is something that he's correct about. We do have to do something about crime in the country. I fully agree with him there. And that's something. You
know what it comes down to? Mental health. Everyone wants to blame everything else, but it all comes down to mental health.
It does. You're right. And nobody in the Democratic Party to date has ever been talking about being tough on crime or even crime at all. We're always talking about we have to tax the millionaires and tax the billionaires, and we have to incorporate, heavier taxes on Amazon because they didn't pay any taxes last year, which is kind of stupid because it's misdirection. They actually did pay a lot of taxes. It was payroll taxes, duh. But they've got this real weird thing where they're trying to say, like, you were mean to the criminals. You tried to stop the criminals from doing things. How dare you stop and frisk black people and Mexican people? Like, there was no white people that were ever stopped or frisked? Ever?
Yeah.
Really? Can we look by the numbers maybe?
Yeah.
Do we have a report on that? And so you mentioned earlier that this whole thing is they're basically trying to find a replacement for Trump. This is what I think the DNC is doing, because the DNC is trying to say, like, look, nobody thought Trump was going to win in 2016. We need a Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I don't see the DNC backing Bernie ever since Bernie kind of just said, I'm not a Democrat really anymore.
Oh, yeah, I've got a clip on that too. He never was a Democrat. He was an independent from the beginning. And people are just like, no, Bernie, so he's going to be great. He's going to be, he's going to do stuff for us. Oh, okay. I kind of scratch my head and say, well, but what? Well, socialism. He's going to make us like the Nordic countries. Great.
Yeah, if you go back to Arnold Schwarzenegger, the reason why in the beginning when he ran for governor in the state of California, and the reason why he didn't go Democrat when he was running was because he said that during that time, and I don't see any difference from that time to this time, that it reminded him of the socialist and communist country that he came from.
I think that Sanders actually had taken his honeymoon or his vacation or something like that to Russia. So he's like, we got to go visit Russia. I love communism. Communism is so wonderful. But before we get into Bernie too much, now here's where the comparison to Trump comes into play. This was clip number 6, Elizabeth Warren.
Uh-oh.
Democrats take a huge risk if we just substitute one arrogant billionaire for another. This country has worked for the rich for a long time and left everyone else in the dirt. It is time to have a president who will be on the side of working families and be willing to get out there and fight for them.
Okay. Can I just say that is extremely intellectually lazy?
Yeah, isn't she rich?
Elizabeth. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This is the woman who was talking about, well, it's such a crime that colleges are charging so much money, but you were getting paid so much of that money to teach those classes. Well, that wasn't a crime. We're going to ignore that. So she goes back and does the exact same thing here, where she's comparing Bloomberg to Trump. She basically, you're literally Donald Trump. And to her, in her mind, that's like saying you're literally Hitler. Okay. That's an argument, I guess. This whole thing just fell apart. I mean, it was fun. It was the most exciting debate so far. Just watching all of these different.
I tell you, it reminded me of wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. It was WWE.
Everyone's getting ready for the Royal Rumble.
That's it.
The smack talking.
That's it. The smack talking didn't stop. So clip number 7. Booty Judge comes in and he tries to go ahead and he tries to go ahead and throw his 2 cents in there. He tries to sound like the tough guy, and he goes after both Bloomberg and Sanders.
We've got to wake up as a party. We could wake up 2 weeks from today, the day after Super Tuesday, and the only candidates left standing will be Bernie Sanders and Mike Bloomberg, the 2 most polarizing figures on this stage. And most Americans don't see where they fit if they've got to choose between a socialist who thinks that capitalism is the root of all evil and a billionaire who thinks that money ought to be the root of all power. We shouldn't have to choose between one candidate who wants to burn this party down and another candidate who wants to buy this party out.
You're rich. You're evil. You want communism. You're evil.
Isn't he rich?
Yeah. Mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He doesn't have any money.
Well, he has a lot more than me and you combined.
I'm sure he's got money. He's got money. Yeah. He just likes to pretend like he doesn't. He's trying to go like, okay, maybe I can be a moderate in this position. Like, people love moderates. Look at me. Hey, I was a military veteran. Yay, I was in the Navy. Hey, I'm gay. I fit all the criteria. Nobody cares. You're done, booty. So, of course, Bernie gets his chance. Bernie gets his chance to come back. And it's pathetic. Have you ever heard a Sanders speech
from Kentucky Fried Chicken? I've heard his.
It's a Colonel Sanders speech. Our extra crispy recipe. No, have you ever a Bernie Sanders?
They're probably more intelligent than Bernie Sanders speech.
I agree. I absolutely agree. But the Bernie Sanders speech is you can pretty much all lump them into democratic socialism, the top 10% of 1% of 0.5% of blah, blah, blah. It's all the same talking points, and we need an economy that works for everybody and blah, blah, blah. Well, Bernie doesn't disappoint. In clip 8, he brings that right back.
I believe in democratic socialism for working people, not billionaires. Health care for all, educational opportunity for all.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Bloomberg, would you like to, the question was about socialism.
Still talking. He just keeps talking. And last clip, because we got to give Bloomberg a shot here. And, I'm hesitant to say this, but Bloomberg, out of all these asshats, is probably the most qualified to actually run against Trump. I don't like him.
One thing I did want, I'm not sticking up, excuse me.
That's all right. Cough it up. Get it out.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sticking up for Bernie, but have you noticed though the DNC put in the moderator, and I guarantee you this is their tactics to kind of shut him out. Yeah.
The DNC knows that Bernie can't be the nominee. They know it. And I mean, really, if you look at the laundry list of people we've got on the stage already, they've disqualified everybody who was already like the Tulsi Gabbards and the Andrew Yangs, like the actual real moderates who actually had some kind of substance to the things that they were saying. Oh, they were gone, baby. They were out. But then they wanted to change the rules and allow Mike Bloomberg to come in and say, well, all right, this guy, listen, I know that we're changing the rules, all of a sudden now that Andrew Yang's out and Tulsi Gabbard is gone. But listen, he gave us a lot of money. He really gave us some money, and it wouldn't be fair of us to leave him out of the debates after all of the money that he just donated. He's a good, decent man.
And he's a smart man. I bet you he had something on somebody, and he was like, and he knows our secrets.
He does.
So we must let him in.
He does. And you know what? What's funny is he might have Napoleon syndrome. He may have bullied his way in, because have you seen this guy? Elizabeth Warren is taller than he is. He is tiny. When Trump called him Mini Mike, he wasn't kidding. He's Mini Mike Bloomberg. Oh my gosh. The dude is so tiny. He doesn't even fit in on, like, you look at all the people on the stage and you're like, okay, I could see him maybe as a leader. Probably not him. He's insane. Wow, who's the little guy? Son, are you lost? Where are your parents? He's tiny. But he did get his chance. And this is my last clip, because you guys are getting annoyed with this already. But this is all just in case you missed the debates whatsoever. This is clip 9. This is Bloomberg finally gets his chance to respond.
A wonderful country we have. The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What I miss here?
Well, you'll miss that I work in Washington, House 1.
That's the first problem.
Live in Burlington, House 2.
That's good.
And like thousands of other Vermonters, I do have a summer camp. Forgive me for that. Where is your home? Which tax haven do you have your home?
New York City, thank you very much. And I pay all my taxes. And I'm happy to do it because I get something for it.
Idiots. I'm very sorry. I own 3 houses.
I feel like Bloomberg just dropped the mic, like on.
That's the impression I got.
Yeah,
I really felt like Bloomberg kind of took it home there at the end, where he was dropping.
Did he say like most Americans have a summer camp home? I don't have one.
Yeah.
Most Americans don't.
Yeah, no. I've got 2 homes, and I'm an anomaly because one of them is a rental property. That's not a common thing. Anyway, that right there.
I have one that's free.
Yeah, but yeah. Yeah, but I'm not going to go into that. Anyway,
no, but like, how dare he? That really upset me. Like most Americans, I have a summer camp home. Who the freaking has that?
And who calls it a summer camp home? Is that like a northeastern thing? Is that something that they say in Vermont? Well, everybody's got a summer camp home. Hell, we've got 3 of them.
It's because I work in Washington.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's because I work in Washington, and that's the problem. That was the key point right there. Is actually Bloomberg made a solid point. Yeah, you work in Washington. That's part of the problem. You, Bernie, you're part of the problem. Most people in Washington are part of the problem, and that was a Trump move. Bloomberg is taking pages out of Trump's book. And he is just going, it's his playbook. Bam, bam, bam. Trump did this. Okay, let's do this. Oh, Trump's doing this. He's the only moderate on that stage. That's my opinion. I could be completely wrong. But man, oh man, is CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Fox, probably AP News. What's that one terrorist organization that
Al Jazeera?
Al Jazeera. Yeah, they're probably all dogging on him all at the same. It's just like this was not Mayor Bloomberg's night. This was just a terrible night, and it was just like, oh my gosh, he's totally not going to be the president. So there it is. You've heard all there is to know about the debate. I'm going to shut up and get out of the way so we can get some real substance going. Take it away, Jacob.
Hey, all right, let's get started. So one thing I know before we even begin on my substance, late last night, I was reading and I sent you that article, which was great. And one of the biggest things I want to let people know, and one of our listeners know, is that in South Carolina, there was a surplus of money. The right thing to do and the humane thing to do was to give that money back to the taxpayers, which they are. It starts today, goes throughout December. They're mailing out a check of $50. Not much, but it was the point is that they're giving the money back that was overpaid to the state of South Carolina. Democrats' response, though, was what, Jeremy? Was what?
It was stupid. Like, well, we should take this money and give it to the state workers since it's people overpaid.
Because I'm an employee and I want a raise.
We've got this in the budget. We need to use it.
Yeah.
Just wait a minute. No. You overtaxed people. You took more money than you should have. You need to give that money back.
Yep. I love it.
And that's what they're doing.
Exactly. And again, listeners, the Democrats want your money via taxes and guarantee. Who cares who wins? Bloomberg, Bernie, Warren. No matter what, the economy is going to take a huge hit because guess what?
If it's
taxes
a Democrat,
are going to raise. Yes.
If it's a Democrat. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and so
jobs will be lost.
The nice thing is we've got the checks and balances of Congress. And so, I mean, the House of Representatives and the Senate can at least make sure that these tax cuts or these tax raises, the tax boosts, if you will.
Yeah, that's what they call it anyways. Even if they raise taxes, it's cutting the taxes.
Yeah, they're going to celebrate it because we're implementing all these taxes on the rich. Listen, you stupid people. And I'm talking to Democrats, anybody who thinks that taxation needs to go up for whatever reason. Do you think that billionaires and millionaires are so stupid that they're just going to sit back and go, well, no, I guess I just got to pay more taxes? No, they're going to find somebody, hire somebody who legally understands how to shelter money. This is why Jeff Bezos is worth so much, is because he knows how to shelter his money. The guy only draws $78,000 a year. That's it. That's all he draws is a salary from Amazon.
And she's not sheltering these rich people. And I'm going to cover this in mentorship, is that they've learned from others, and it's not illegal sheltering. No, they just know how to invest properly.
Yeah. It's that simple. It's like, if you don't realize a capital gain, you don't have to pay a tax. I have to pay a tax for every stock that I own. Well, then I'm going to stop investing in the stock market. That's going to crash the market. Duh.
Yep. So anyways, let's jump into digging out. Now, if you're following our last two episodes, we're talking about you getting out of that rut in life. And, and now if you followed these tips and you're starting to implement this, and it's going to take a while to become a habit. Jeremy, how many days does it take for something to become a habit?
21, I believe.
Yeah. So you're not there yet, but to sustain it and to reinforce it and becoming more of a habit, we don't want you to slide back down to the ground. And one of the things I wanted to cover was books, but I thought mentorship would be a lot more important. And you can get mentorship from books, which I'll cover in the next step. But what I wanted to cover was mentorship. And I think it's very important because Jeremy really clicked on something on last episode. It happens. You'll feel it inside of you that, and once you see a great person and you're like, oh my God, he's probably going the same path I'm willing to go on. And I want to learn from this. So let me be, I want to be mentored by him. Let me be his mentoree and so on and so forth. So I want to kind of go over why is it so important? Like, oh, it's just Jeremy talking, whatever. No, so many successful people in this world had mentors, and a lot of stuff is not covered when you read biographies. Let me tell you that, and especially if you read the wrong books. A lot of people had mentors. Zuckerberg did not just come out and create a Facebook and became and sustained to become a billionaire out of no reason. No, his mentor was Steve Jobs. A lot of people don't know that. So I want to go back to the past and going back to the birth of, I would say, modern civilization was Socrates. Socrates mentored Plato. A lot of people don't know that. You don't need to attend a philosophy class before you know these names like Socrates and Plato. They're both pillars in Greek philosophy and the bedrock of what we call now today modern philosophers. Our teachers that we have in philosophy class. It would be none of them if it wasn't for these two outstanding gentlemen. And interestingly, despite the popularity of Socrates today, there is no record of his writing before his death. Socrates' records were gone because, if you ever read The Death of Socrates, you know why. But I don't want to go too much into that, which was his mentor Plato's written all his teachings.
Really?
And and Socrates is credited as the founder of Western philosophy and contributed immensely to ethics, and he was the first moral philosopher too as well. Ethics was a very prime, and that's what got him in trouble, to be honest, and what ordered his execution. Now, if Socrates covered the first 1,000 miles of Greek philosophy, Plato, which was his mentoree, perhaps paced through the next 5,000 miles. of modern philosophy. He did more to contribute to Western philosophy as he laid the foundations for Western science and mathematics. The success of Plato surpassed the achievements of Socrates. Plato founded the first institution of higher learning. A lot of people don't know that in the Western world, the Academy of Athens. Plato also passed the torch to his knowledge to another great philosopher, which I'll cover next. But this is what the key things about successful people is. They're not selfish. It's going back to that. They carry on their teachings, and then they know who their pupils are. They know who's someone who's hungry for the knowledge, and so from there they're like, okay, let me teach you what I was taught.
Now, this was Plato so he established the first modern university. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
We can't say too modern, but he's basically responsible for the establishing of the ideology of
higher
the
learning.
Western university, right?
Yeah.
Who discovered the first safe space? Sorry, I couldn't help it.
No, it's all right. No. So it's funny that you brought that up because back then they weren't judgmental on their teachings. They just took in knowing that, hey, I don't know anything. And that's the problem today with today's students. But I don't want to digress too much. But Plato mentored Aristotle, and no one knows who Aristotle is. I'm going to just give you a brief history. At the age of 17 or 18, Aristotle enrolled himself without any parents, nothing, into the Plato's Academy of Athens and remained Plato's student until the age of 37.
Really?
Yep. Back then when universities were free. He is known as the father of Western philosophy. The teaching of Aristotle served as the first comprehensive system of Western philosophy. The principle of kinetics developed by Galileo, William Harvey, explanations of blood circulation in the human body were both reactions of the writings of Aristotle. A lot of this was from Aristotle's teachings. Now, to prove that the torch knowledge passed down the lines, Aristotle, a lot of people don't know this, who Aristotle mentored, and to this day is one of the greatest commanders in war of all time, which was Alexander the Great.
He was a great fellow.
Yeah. Shortly after Plato's death, Aristotle left Athens and moved to a place called with King Philips in Macedon. Aristotle pretty much was getting paid by Alexander the Great to become his teacher. And Alexander the Great pretty much learned everything from him at the age of 16, all the way to the age of 20. Now, if anybody knows, Alexander the Great pretty much ruled half of the Eastern and Western world at the age of 32. And he never lost any of his battles. Unfortunately, he just died from being poisoned by his own commanders. But again, that kind of shows you how powerful mentorship was.
Yeah, because
and a lot of people don't know, Alexander, every time he moved with the front lines, he carried about 5 to 6 carriages of books. He carried his library with him.
Just out of curiosity, why did they poison him? Do you happen to know?
He thought that the commanders were pretty much getting tired of a whole lot of stuff, and they didn't like who he was going to pick for the next, to take over his place, which he never did, and that's what kind of broken apart the empire.
I see. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Continue.
So anyway,
sorry.
Now let's fast forward to recent successful people. Enough of the classics. And I want to cover people that we know. Warren Buffett, right? Everyone knows who Warren Buffett was. To this day, is one of the richest men in the world.
I've heard a thing or two about him.
Yeah. Well, while physicist Sir Isaac Newton is widely viewed as the leading authority of gravity and motion, economist Benjamin Graham is lauded as to be the top guru of finance and investment, known as the father of value investing. Now, Benjamin Graham mentored Warren Buffett, but it's a unique way in how they found each other. It's kind of similar to what I did before I even read Benjamin Graham and before I even decided to write this out. Because I learned this later on down the road after finding a mentor, and I kind of laughed to myself. But anyways, arguably Graham's best known book, The Intelligent Investor, provided practical advice to the everyday investor. Legendary investor Warren Buffett, who Graham famously mentored, called this book by far the best book of investing ever written. In fact, after reading it at the age of 19, Buffett enrolled in the Columbia Business School to study under Graham, with whom he developed a lifelong friendship until pretty much Benjamin Graham's death. which it's so amazing, you know. And again, the mentorship does not stop here. Warren Buffett mentored Bill Gates.
Right. They're still friends to this day.
Yep. Having dropped out of Harvard as a teenager, it was touched in gold whether Bill Gates would be able to get his ideas off the ground. But he was still young. He was naive. You know, we've all been there. Mm-hmm. Bill Gates is not, he's human just like the rest of us. Growing up in life where, you know, once we get that key of success, we're kind of like, we have that we know it all mentality. And even then, Warren Buffett kind of slowed him down and still had faith in his young fellow and be like, here, listen to me. And put his arm around his shoulders, and that was it. The rest is history. The impact of Buffett's experience and the input on Gates was clear from the interview that they both had back in the day on CNBC, in which the Microsoft founder credited Buffett for his invaluable advice in overcoming adversity and long-term thinking. Mm-hmm. His ability to teach things that are complex and put them into simple forms so that people can understand them and get the benefit of all these experience was just immaculate.
We've talked about that before. That's also Richard Branson, I think his name is. He used to be the CEO of Virgin Mobile, or maybe he still is. I don't know, but that was one of his very famous quotes. Is that the most difficult concept that you'll ever deal with is taking something that's very complex and simplifying it to an understandable level for the average lay person. If you can do that, you can create a business out of anything.
Oh yeah. Now, it's clear from these examples that mentoring has stood the test of time, as you know, is one of the strategies used by champions to reach their destination or destiny. You know, English physicist Isaac Newton once said, if I've seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. Mm-hmm. It's really great. The further you can see into your future, the more you become confident in its possibilities. Now, that's too much, you know, I know that's a whole lot to intake, but just a little bit out there, you know, every successful person has had a mentor. I'm not saying you should be successful like these guys, because that takes years. You're not going to get there overnight. It'll take decades to become a billionaire. But what I'm saying is finding that mentor to reach it. And actually, I'm going to go into these later tomorrow, or for the next part 3 is books and what books I love, which one of my favorites is The Alchemist, because, you know, he's reaching for this successful dream, but later he recaps that the successful dream of life was the journey there. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want you to think that, because I haven't reached my ending goal, you're not successful. No, get that out of your head. The successfulness of life is enjoying and learning the teachings that are given to you by your mentors.
That very same idea was repeated by Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. Life's a journey, not a destination. Mm-hmm. How far can you fly with broken wings, he said.
No, yeah, you're right. So now, picking a mentor, you know, a lot of people have different ways in choosing a mentor. One thing I would say, though, and it's very, very important, is choose wisely. The goal of this relationship is to make your habits and values better as you become like people you spend time with. Again, we covered this in numerous podcasts about picking the people that you surround yourself with. You know, your mentor can be someone you know personally or someone you never met, as long as you learn valuable lessons from this example. Or from their examples, which is kind of like reading their books, you know, biographies, memoirs, if you know, especially if they're dead. And thank God for literature, because literature will give you mentors that died in the early 1800s, but there's something in your career path that you need to learn from them, you know, like Benjamin Graham. Just because he's dead doesn't mean you cannot learn from his teachings. I have his book on my bookshelf. You know, I think I've shown Jeremy it. And matter of fact, I think Jeremy at the time, we weren't familiar with Benjamin Graham and who he was.
I'm still not. I don't know much about him.
So choose wisely. And when it comes to a mentor, and I think the second thing is take action. If all you do is meet with your mentor or study about him in books, you're not going to get much from the relationship. Even the best mentoring relationship is a failure if you don't follow through and act on what you've learned. Just reading the book doesn't mean that, I've learned from him. No, it's called acting upon what the lessons you've learned. Just because I know I went to economics and microeconomics and macroeconomics doesn't mean I'm a pro in investing. No, because during that time I wasn't practicing. I wasn't acting upon what I was learning. So
you can apply this now. You're talking specifically in this instance about literature, being out of books and whatnot. And you don't literally place yourself under the umbrella of somebody else's tutelage, but you're instead saying, well, you know what? I want to see what you had to say about X. And so I'm going to pick up this book.
Exactly.
Because like some of the greatest minds in the world, they've all written a book and it's out there. You can get it. And it doesn't even cost you that much. I buy my books used, $4 at best, maybe $5 sometimes, depending on the author. And so by that understanding, I've picked up books by guys like Tony Robbins and Dave Ramsey and Chris Hogan and Thomas Sowell, and people that I want to understand about, that I really want to learn from. Like I've seen them, I've watched them walk out this path, and I was like, okay, I know I can't do exactly the things that these guys have done. I can't start another Dave Ramsey company, but maybe I can take bits and pieces from what Dave Ramsey has done and apply it in other places in my life. So one example I'm going to give you, this is an idea that my wife and I were working on right now. She has access as a real estate agent to this mass network of agents around the country. Anywhere in the United States, she can pull up an agent. They're based on their location, and she can see who the best agent in that network, in that area is, right? So I thought, well, whenever, because here's the kicker, is whenever she makes a referral, she gets a small percentage of the sale. That's if the client goes with the person that she's refers them to. And it's a small amount of money. It's not huge. But if you take those referrals and you start pushing it out and you say, hey, look, I know this network. I've got this network. If you want to find the best agent in your area, I've got access to information you don't have access to. Let me help you find the best agent. It won't cost you a dime. And we kind of build out upon the fact that she's selling houses. Now, she can still sell houses here in Abilene. That's great. But why not pick up those extra pennies along the way? So, and that's a Dave Ramsey principle that I borrowed.
Now, another thing, actually, I learned this one from Dave Ramsey, is change it up. You find that you'll need different mentors for different areas of your business. Someone who walked with you as you built the vision of your business might not have the best advice about budgeting or the back office issues, or not even, maybe the person that you're mentoring from started a great financial company, but what you're starting is a dealership. Yeah. Totally different. So maybe that first mentor, not saying that he was wrong or teaching you, he gave you all that he can give you, because the rest of it is out of his realm. So it will never hurt for you to find a second mentor, a third mentor, a fourth mentor. I have plenty of mentors that I learned from. Jeremy's one of them. I learn a lot from him still to this day. Yep. So doesn't mean that give up on your mentor because I'm done with you. That's selfish. Don't do that. Be the person that I want to continue learning. Jot my notes, because when it's time, maybe someone will come for me and I'll be their mentor.
Mentorship is kind of like a buffet. You go to a Chinese buffet, right? You're not going to eat everything on the buffet. There's some things up there that you just don't like. I'm not a big fan of shrimp, but I know that they're going to put shrimp on a Chinese buffet. So I'm going to stay away from the shrimp because I don't like it. But there's other things that are there that I can pick from, certain types of chicken or whatever. The salmon, especially. Usually the salmon is pretty good. So, and I need the omega-3s. So I'm going to go get some salmon, right? You got to get those omega fatty acids to build muscle. Well, so because it's the buffet, I know what I like, and I know what I'm going to take, and I know what I'm going to use. But there's going to be things that I don't like. Like you mentioned me, for example, as your mentor. Obviously, there's some things that, I know that you don't. And likewise, there's some things that that I don't. And so I might project a different opinion on, say, cars, for example, like because you drive a Mercedes, I drive a Toyota. I'll till the day I die probably drive Toyotas because of their dependability and whatnot, but you have a different taste. And so that might be that one thing on the buffet that you're just going to kind of leave it there. You're like, well, yeah, Toyotas are fine and all. It's just not for me. So treat the mentorship like a buffet. You don't, if you got somebody who's extremely toxic and you're trying to utilize them as a mentor and then you discover toxicity, sure, cut them off. But beyond that, just take what you like.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, mentorship is not like a normal friendship. It's not like a normal partnership. One great thing about mentorship, and if you're not used to it, I'm used to it, so I consider it greatness. You might seem as a because you're still learning your ways of getting out of that negative thinking. If you're following us through this 10-part session of digging out, but the thing is, I love about mentors is being pushed out of my comfort zone. And some people that are not new of this way of thinking might take it as a hostile thing, and it's not. Please don't. I embrace being pushed out of my comfort zone. Every great leader does something that no one else in their field or even in the world is comfortable already or skilled enough to pull off. Maybe it's something big like inventing a new piece of technology, or maybe it's something that seems small or offering a flex time for your employees in your industry, whatever may be difficult. While your relationship with your mentor depends on a unique personal relationship, there's a few main characters that those who choose mentors naturally fall into. One of them is the challenger, the cheerleader, and the coach. You ever heard of those, Jeremy?
I have.
Yeah. So try to find a good mixture of this, but also don't feel like because you're getting out of your comfort zone, it's a hostile thing. Again, that's why it's very important to choose wisely. Try to learn from these. We've talked about this numerous times now, bringing this up in our Digging Up series, is that you have that failure thing. It's not the end. Is rehearsal. It's something that you're learning from.
Yeah, it's you've discovered a method of how not to do something.
Yes, exactly.
Failure is just part of the process of success.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. Now, one thing I love about being pushed out of your comfort zone is the challenger portion of it. Asking questions about why your comfort zone is the way it is until it no longer exists. And eventually it won't be. Like for the longest time, being out of my comfort zone was starting a business. I was so scared. It seems so overwhelming when it comes to like, oh my God, you're stepping into the realm of legal documents, submitting stuff to get your LLC off the ground. And now it's easy. Fill out a piece of paper, go to your county clerk, get it stamped, boom, there you go. You don't even need LegalZoom. You don't need to spend an outrageous amount of money to get your business off the ground. Now, the cheerleader portion, you relentless boost your self-esteem and confidence until you feel brave enough to stop over your own boundaries, which again, I am now more comfortable to start a business and more comfortable to set up the budget, more comfortable to set up new business expense charts, and stuff like that. I've learned all that from my mentors to the point now I can help others and, challenge them along and also cheer them along when I see them take initiative. This is all, I've learned some of these too from the military being a good leader. It's just perking it and twerking it a little bit now to the civilian portion. It's no different really. So, and then one thing we've learned in the military, which I embrace, is the coach. That one person, your squad leader, your team leader, if you're a private, who is wise veteran, providing the knowledge you need to innovate or to overcome the same adversities they did. That's why it's different to find different mentors for different challenges, especially, again, you found that one great mentor, but he's a financial person and you're opening a car dealership. Now it's time for you to find a salesman. Maybe it's time for you to find a closer. Maybe it's time for you to find someone who knows finances when it comes to automobiles. So there you have it on that portion of the 3 challengers, the cheerleader, the coach, when it comes to mentorship. Now, one thing that makes and breaks mentorship, and this is just calling off, I'm not even reading this no more, it's just I've read the bold line in my notes, is how to learn to accept and give feedback. Jeremy, we all know the epic failure on feedback. People take hostility of it, right? Sometimes when you tell them like, hey, Jeremy, why do you tie your shoes that way?
Who do you think you are telling me what to
do?
This is Velcro shoes and I like them.
Yeah, exactly. So the feedback on like, say my first time filling out an LLC and I kind of did it a little bit different than what my mentor did, he's going to ask me and give me his feedback. Now, again, my naiveness back in my day would have been like, well, forget you. I'll do it the way I want to do it. But instead, listen to what he's saying, listen to what he's trying to teach you. And then from there, you're like, instead of going over to I always say your Neanderthal frame of thinking and go into the more analytical side and wanting the knowledge side and kind of be like, you know what? Yeah, maybe he is right. Maybe if I did this, I would have saved an hour of my time, which if you listen to our podcast, we embrace time like it's money, because it is.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It costs you everything if you waste your time seeking out, for example, everybody likes to go out on Saturday night. I don't, because first of all, if I'm going out, it means I have to spend money. Okay. So if I'm spending money, I better be getting something amazing in return. Chances are I'm not really getting anything amazing in return. I'm probably getting something along the lines of, I don't know, maybe a bottle of wine and some beer nuts or something like that. I don't know. What good does it really do me to go through and spend this money when I know that, it's like, this is a frivolous, small endeavor, small type of thing. Like, yeah, everybody needs a little time away to have a little bit of fun from time to time. Fine. I get that. But every Saturday night, by the time I do the math on this, if you spend $50 on a Saturday night just goofing off, and I'm just being, very limiting, very resourceful on this. If I spend $50 every Saturday night going out, drinking a little bit, goofing off, whatever, that's $200 at the end of the month that I blew through. Now, do I remember anything that I did? Probably not. It was just a thing. I just went and did a thing, and now I have less money to, invest into, say, stocks, bonds, real estate.
Or to better yourself.
Yeah.
Instead of going out that night, you can go and exercise or better yourself spiritually. Maybe read a chapter in the Bible that's been questioning you or something that's bothering you over the week, or work on your marriage. Not saying that your marriage is bad, but, spend that quality time with your wife, your kids, and just not, elevating that level of the good life, I always call it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is everybody needs to decide what's most important to them. And, that's where you're going to, because whatever is most important to you, that's where you're going to put your efforts. If the most important thing to you is family, well, then you're going to spend as much time with your family as possible. If the most important thing to you is, the pursuit of, financial freedom, then you're going to invest in different
finding
things.
A mentor to help you get there.
Finding the mentorship, the books, the DVDs, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Now, having a mentor means you literally asking someone to give you criticism all the time. This means that you'll learn how to accept that feedback, which will serve you not only to the context of that relationship, but in every other situation in which someone else will have the stake in quality of your work. Hint, your employee, or maybe you're learning to become a better employee to become that next boss. And eventually this mentor is going to make you get more into your comfort zone when it comes to getting out of little situations. Like me, I was telling you, starting a business way back then, I was always scared to do it. And now I'm in my comfort zone, and slowly that comfort zone of getting feedback and learning this and that slowly becomes confidence. Yep. And one thing about confidence, that what it creates, a lot of people don't know this, is reduces stress. Confidence reduces so much stress, which is great. Stress is more healthy for your body, because stress is not healthy for your life at all whatsoever. So mentors do more than give advice and help brainstorming. They act as a confidant that you can unload your problems with. They will listen and help you dissect exactly what's bothering you and provide support as you think of a solution together. On the flip side, when mentors are under stress, they can use your situation as a footer for learning exercises for their mentee. Both the mentor and the mentee benefit from the stress-reducing power of a relationship, because at the heart of it, they're friends who trust each other, capability of good judgment. The more and more this relationship goes down the road. So again, confidence and reduces stress, and from there you'll start feeling more confident to the point that like where I'm at in life, that I am now more confident enough that I know what I'm talking about and I can accept a mentee. I think I'm confident enough to learn to guide someone to get to where I'm at. And it goes back to, if you listen to our earlier podcast when we first started, the 33% rule, I live and die by that. 33% below me, 33% at my level, and 33% above me when it comes to my route of successfulness, which is always bettering myself, finances, seeking knowledge, so on and so forth. So finding it, and to be honest, I have plenty of mentors that I've learned from. I can spit their names out now. Daryl Lyons, Dwayne Conks, Barry Wiley, Jeremy Berry. And it's just on top of my head. I have a new one that I've met, and he's actually an executive for Wells Fargo. Jim Lawrence. I met him when he came over to hand over my house, and to this day we're always spitting each other text messages like, oh, you should read this book, oh, you should read this book. And it's not garbage books. They're kind of like, this is how it is, in leadership, or this and that, and we feed off each other. And that right there, I'm not saying is a full-fledged mentorship, but it is a friendship that's working on becoming in that kind of level, because we're not there being selfish with our knowledge, we're sharing it to better ourselves.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head with confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we first started this whole thing, I wasn't very confident in speaking, and
yeah.
I even asked you a question not too terribly long ago where, because I don't remember where we were, what we were doing. You just struck up this conversation with some random person. I'm just like, how the hell do you sit there and talk to people you don't even know?
Oh yeah, I'm like that. This was back when we're on our trip.
Yeah, and so in that process, I took some of the things that you said. And so this is where mentorship actually came out from you towards me, because it does go both ways. And in that process, I remember you saying like, well, I just talk to people, and that opened kind of an idea like in my head, like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. So I can just randomly talk to people, and most people aren't the people that I think that they have already, like, I've established in my head who they really are, but that's not who the person
not even
really
get to
is.
Knowing them. Yeah.
They're just 9 times out of 10, they're just a normal human being who's just trying to exist like anybody else.
And going in that journey of life. Yep.
Yeah. And the big problem that we see here in 2020 with like the social medias and the YouTubes of the world is we see the absolute best and the absolute worst in all these people in the online world. Why? Because that's what gets clicks. That's what draws attention. So we just naturally have this assumption like everybody is basically a dirtbag. And or either everybody is a dirtbag or everybody is like this amazing superhero person. There's no in between. And the truth is there's a lot of in between. And it's really like it's gotten much easier for me to have a conversation with somebody. Now, if they start saying something stupid, which it does happen, I'll be like, all right, have a good day. Go my own way. And I won't hesitate to do that. But I had
you won't be rude about it or what the word I'm looking for is kind of like
condescending.
Yeah, or kind of like word left my head.
Let's just go with condescending.
No, you'll still be polite about it and not demeaning him. You're gonna be like, well, it's nice to meet you, sir, or or ma'am. I'm gonna go ahead and continue on.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's more along the lines of, you have yourself a great day. I'm out of here.
No, yeah, and trust me, every person, and you know how I am socially. I was never like that. Seriously, from the beginning.
You weren't the social butterfly?
No, I was not, dude. I was always shy. But the more and more mentors that I had, and the more and more I've, hung out with them personally and seen them how they react to others, and I'm like, holy crap, this is so easy. And again, you get that social anxiety, and this was PTSD again. Going back to that and being at the bottom of that hole where I'm digging myself out. It was still lingering at the time. I'm like, I'm scared to shake your hand then because I'm using my right hand and that's my trigger hand and I can't pull my gun out at the same time.
You haven't been in China licking doorknobs, have you?
So it took me a while. And then again, listeners, it's not overnight. I met Daryl Lyons about a year before I met my wife. And from there, even then, it took me so long to build the confidence to even calling someone by their first name at the cash register. They're wearing a name tag telling you their name. And still I'm like, all right, okay, thank you. So unsure of myself,
and what's funny is here's another illustration in confidence is when you're like you mentioned being in that store and like you go into a store and pick up something, whatever, groceries, what have you, everybody's wearing name tags, right? They've got their name tag, their name is on it, whatever they prefer to be called, whatever. I found that if you just actually address that person by their name immediately, just like that, they start to
drop their guard down. Yeah.
Yeah. They lower their guard. They feel much more open, much more friendly. And that's become kind of a staple with it. Whenever I have to deal with customer service, which I absolutely hate dealing with customer service, but whenever I have to deal with customer service and I want to get what I want, the first thing I know is I got to turn on the charm a little bit and let this person know I'm their friend, not their enemy. So you walk up to I don't know, maybe it's the Geek Squad counter, right? Hey, DJ, how you doing today, man? Hey, you're the man, you're the expert that I need to speak to. So here's what I need. Here's what's going on with me. Show me how this gets done because I'm an idiot and you're a genius, and you just drop that kind of demeanor, that kind of attitude on them and letting them know like, hey, you're in charge. They're not really, but they feel empowered when you drop that on them. Hey, thanks, DJ. You are the man. And sorry about
here's a great example I want to share on this podcast, Jeremy. And you were there to witness it so you could support this and how good I was at this. Jeremy was a witness at this at our hiking convention that we went to. We met a guy named Billy Goat. I went straight up to him. I said, hey, Billy Goat, how are you doing? You can clearly see he did not know who I was or didn't remember who I was. But just by there saying hello, calling him by his, trail name, which by then that's norm. That's like calling him by his name.
Yeah.
And so from there, he dropped his guard. And Jeremy, you have to witness, he was sharing his life with us.
Immediately.
Yeah. He was telling us things that, that you tell your therapist about, like having problems at, losing his home or, he left his family behind and all this stuff. And we're just like, yeah. And that's what happens when you build and you have that aura of confidence. I just straight up went up to this gentleman and started asking him questions. I wasn't meaning to probe on him. And just tell me your story. And boom, he told me his story.
And furthermore, a lot of it was tied to common bond because both of you had have the obvious interest in hiking. And well, I mean, Billy Goat obviously had the obvious interest in hiking with all the miles that he'd put on in later years, no less. But there was a common bond there. There was a common
jumping on a
there.
Stage like he's 19.
Yeah, and he's not 19. He was he was almost 90. But you had that common interest there, that common bond, and that immediately established peace in his mind that he could speak to you and tell you anything that you wanted to know. There wasn't going to be judgment. It wasn't going to be a big deal. He knew like this guy is safe, if you will, like the college kids like to use the term safe. This guy is safe to speak to. I can open up to him and I can share with him because we have this common interest. So if I go back to the DJ at Geek Squad example, and I say, oh, hey, I see you have an iPhone. I have an iPhone too. Aren't we so cool? And it's like that. Oh yeah, I like iPhones. Well, what do you think about XYZ with the new blah, blah, blah? And he's going to open up and he's going to share his opinion. And nobody values you more than the person who's asked to share an opinion.
And it all goes back to tone too. Again, going at DJ, I see that. Is that a new phone? So it's all, yeah. So it all comes down to your tone and your confidence. Going right back to being confident into yourself will eliminate the stress now to the point that I'm not stressed about being around strangers. My wife would tell you that I make friends out of everybody and anybody, you know.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've learned from mentorship. You know, Daryl, it took me watching him, you know, when we went for our lunch, you know, our lunches and stuff, or being around his place of work. I never worked for him, but he invited me over to kind of learn from him. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy how he's operating. You know, he's meeting new people, doesn't know anything about them, and they're a prospect to do business with. And he talks to them and embraces them like they're their best friend. I need to learn this.
Yeah. It's so easy. It's just as simple as letting that other person know that they're the most important person in the conversation. And that's all that is it's just a humbling factor where you'll allow yourself to be humbled just enough. You're not beating yourself up or anything, but you're humbling yourself just enough to let that person know that you're respecting them and their time and their attention, their energy, what have you, more than you're respecting your own. And that's all as simple as, you know, finding ways like the correlation, like you had with Billy Goat, telling DJ that he is the best at the best of whatever it is that he does and pretending he's the expert and just giving them a small amount of praise. It strokes and soothes the ego, and it's how you create friendships. Dale Carnegie principles, baby.
There you go. Well, that's all I got today, Jeremy. You got anything else?
Let's see. I don't know. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, do some freaking push-ups.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, talk to you later.
Peace.